Hello, this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network every Thursday at 1 p.m. And you could also find me on the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel and Conscious Resistance website. So today we have L-Dixon, who's a hippie anarchist rapper. And he's also the creative director of Never Get Busted Company. That is a really awesome company that's helping to improve the lives of many victimless victims. Victimless crime, we say victims, right? Victims of the
Yeah.
system. So L. Dixon, so tell us a little bit about, let's start off, how you became an anarchist. That's always a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, I became an anarchist. Well, there's kind of two levels to it, I guess. Growing up, I never really believed in government, but it was more of like just kind of the apathy of the youth. It was one of those things where I feel like the youth today naturally has a distrust of the systems, but we really don't have any like concrete like terms or logic or any sort of philosophical framework to put it in. So I felt that a lot when I was younger. And it wasn't until I got in college and after experimenting with psychedelics and wanting to be more informed with how the world works and actually wanted to make an impact and make the world a better place, that I kind of had like a political awakening. I started getting into politics and really wanting to be informed and not just assume that it was that was bullshit without actually knowing what I'm talking about. So yeah, I started watching the primaries in the 2008 election, and I really like a lot of people in this time period. I really resonated with a lot of things Ron Paul had to say. And things about ending the Federal Reserve and dramatically cutting government programs and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I saw how the media treated Ron Paul. It was completely obvious to me that he really didn't have any chance because of the way the media outcasted him and the way they wouldn't let him in a lot of the debates. He was really treated as like this extreme underdog with no support. When if you go to the internet, he had one of the biggest followings. He generated more money online than any other candidate, and yet on the mainstream media, he was treated like this old kook that didn't know what he was talking about. So I started to like it caused me to look into, okay, why is the media acting like this? Are they bought and paid for? Are they really as corrupt as I'd assumed as a kid? And it really forced me to like learn all about the system and discover how corrupt it was, and what means it was corrupt, and what were the tools and methods that the people in control used to keep the system the way it was. And through that, I discovered, uh, just how deeply flawed the system is as a whole, and that no one person was going to be the person to change this entire corrupt system, but that it was a systemic error, and that no group of individuals should be in control of everyone else's lives. That's an inherently flawed concept. And so yeah, then I discovered the non-aggression principle and voluntarism, and that just gave that philosophical framework that I was missing as a younger adult. It gave me that, and it allowed me to like fully solidify my identity as an anarchist.
So what books or podcasters or personalities like that really solidified those concepts for you?
Well, again, Ron Paul. I read his book "In the Fed." That was awesome. Um, there were a lot of people really. I take a lot of influence from people like Timothy Leary and Terrence McKenna, as far as like the way out there characters that are really psychedelically influenced. But then also some of the newer philosophers like Stefan Molyneux. I really I resonated a lot with what he says. Not that he brought anything new to me. He gave me concrete terms to put my intuitions in. So I really appreciate Stefan Molyneux. Um, and yeah, I eventually began studying a little bit of Mises just because I started seeing his name around,
Hmm.
being tossed around the community. So there's a wide range of people, man. And I definitely feel like myself for sure, and most of our generation stands on the shoulders of giants. At this day and age, we have the internet, we have the entire scope of human knowledge up to this point to tap into, and it really empowers us to kind of pick up where they left off and take it a little bit further and advance the cause a little bit further than they could have.
We have the internet, but you still got to go to college, though, right?
Man, trust me, I'm a dropout. And my only regret about being a dropout is that I didn't do it sooner. I waited until my 4th year before I realized that I was wasting my time.
What was your major?
Well, I bounced around, and that was part of the problem. I wanted to work in the video game industry at first, so I started off in computer science, and then I shifted to business management because I really wanted to start my own business one day. But then I realized I hated finance and accounting, so I shifted to psychology because I was really interested in it. But it was like, hey, what the fuck do I do with psychology? So then they were just like, okay, you've got to pick a major right now. You're wasting your time and ours. So at that point, I've realized that I was just I was working for this piece of paper that I really didn't need. Not to say that I didn't take any valuable information from my college experience. There was some of that, but it was just this large amount of money that I was paying for this piece of paper when I really would have been better off if I just dove headfirst into my interest on the internet and using some of these new educational platforms like the Khan Academy or all the wide range of internet services there are where you can learn anything you could possibly dream of, any skill or any other field of thought.
Yeah, so. I firmly believe that the internet is going to render colleges and universities obsolete, and if they already haven't rendered public school obsolete,
Right, I think they have.
Because
I really think they have.
And the only reason that it seems to me that people are sending their kids to public school, number one, is the law. Number two, inertia, right? Just because everyone else is sending their kid, you have to send your kid, right? And it's just so funny how people, complain to me because I have 2 kids, 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're not going anywhere near those places. But people tell me all the time, how can you do that? Don't you care about education? Don't you want them to learn how to read or write? How are they going to learn their history?
Don't you want your kids to have a future?
Yeah.
Don't you want your kids to do the same thing that our generation did?
And I'm like, you know what? You're exactly right. My kids aren't going to learn anything because they're not going to this brick and mortar sterile environment where they're forced to sit down, shut up, and listen, right? Memorize, stop regurgitating on a test. Because
exactly.
Memorization and indoctrination, yeah, that's what you call education today, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, that's the simplest way to explain the problem I see with the school system is they show kids what to think and not how to think. That's why you come out with a whole generation of people that have the rote memorization skills, and they're very in tune with their propaganda. They've memorized their propaganda head to toe. They can list all the presidents A to Z. They can list all the presidents, from first president to last president. They can tell you exactly how things are supposed to be according to the textbooks, but they don't have the logic and the reasoning skills to move forward beyond what they've been indoctrinated with,
or to question at all,
or to question
what they've been taught. I think George Carlin said, more than teaching kids how to think, you have to teach kids how to question, right, what they've been taught. Because once you blindly accept things because other people have told you or because authority has told you, then you're committing an enormous fallacy of logic, right? Logical fallacy of appeal to authority. But yeah, I talk to people, I tell them, kids are forced to be in public school for 12 years, right? Now imagine if you were to devote 12 years of your life to doing anything, right? How much of a master would you be at that or at multiple disciplines, right? Whereas with kids, after 12 years, they're barely eligible for a minimum wage job, right? Barely. They barely have the skills for that. That's it. That's all they can do.
It's crazy, man. We laugh, but it's sad the way they do it, man. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. One of the things that really irks me about the situation too is the fact that, despite the school system being really focused on science and the scientific method and giving kids a full understanding of scientific history and everything, right? We don't approach our school system with the same scientific method. Like if you look at a lot of the studies that are coming out about the best conditions for children to learn under, or under what means people will thrive the most and learn the most and be best prepared for the world, it all this new scientific evidence that studies are showing is completely contrary to how our system is set up. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense at all. Waking kids up early in the morning and bringing them in to work factory hours and just teaching them exactly what you want them to learn and not what they're passionate about. The science is showing now that that just doesn't work. But the school system doesn't respond to that. We don't know how to. They can't practice what they preach in the simplest terms. Like they can't apply that same scientific method to actually making their function better on this planet. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a broken window fallacy. That's what I tell people, because they always say, "Look at you. You went to public school and you turned out okay, right?" That's a classic broken window fallacy, or not recognizing the seen versus the unseen. Right? All they see is me and how I am today, right? But you don't see what was destroyed, the potential that was annihilated through being forced into an institution against your will and learning things against your will, right? So
Right.
it's interesting. So tell me a little bit about your rapping history and what you're into with
Oh
it.
yeah, man. I've been rapping for as long as I can remember. As a kid, I was making up songs, and they were completely stupid, but it was fun. I just loved it. So it's something that I've done for a long time, and it's kind of hit several phases. I did it as a kid, just playing around, thought it was fun. Around the time I was 14 or 15, I got really inspired, like, listening to Eminem and his mastery of words and rhyme. And it just really inspired me to take it more seriously. Like, hey, this is something I really think I want to do for the rest of my life. I just enjoyed it. It's like a puzzle that my mind just geeks out on. So, yeah, I started doing it as a teenager a lot more seriously, like writing on a daily basis and everything. But even then, I didn't really expect to do anything with it as far as like, a career, or expected that I was going to like actually try to make anything of it. I always wanted to work in the video game industry, go to college, be a programmer, this and that. But yeah, it wasn't until I got halfway through college.
Let me just interrupt you one minute.
Yeah.
Because you just reminded me of something. You said you didn't do it. You weren't doing it as you weren't thinking about it as a career, right? And
Right.
I was just thinking that I think that's one of the things that destroys children's like creativity and imagination is you have to say, okay, put the stuff that you like to do aside, and now think, what do you want to
Exactly.
do for the rest of your life? Right?
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
what better way to destroy a kid's desire for following up and pursuing something than like, oh
I
man, I
know.
got to decide just one thing to do for the rest of my life.
Just one thing, and if it doesn't feed my kids that I'm gonna have in 15 or 20 years, then it's not worth it.
Yeah,
That's what they make you think. That's what they
yeah,
make you think.
yeah. Sorry.
So as this 14 or 15-year-old kid, that's exactly what's running through my mind. Like, hey, I love this. This is really fun, but can I feed the kids that I'm gonna have in 15 years with it?
Yeah,
Maybe not. It's kind of a long shot. Maybe I should just go the safe route.
yeah, I know, right? The safe route.
The safe route. So yeah. Anyway, again, middle towards the middle of my college experience, I started to really realize that, wait a second, this whole thing is a con game. I should just be doing what I'm passionate about. Now, don't get me wrong, I was passionate about the video game industry and going in that direction and everything too. But I started to realize that the way I could best impact the world as I'm going in through this awakening process and realizing that, oh, this is fucked up and that's fucked up, this whole system is corrupt, I'm like, you know what? This music is a really powerful tool to be able to communicate something to people that they naturally wouldn't necessarily listen to, Because I mean, there are a lot of people that will sit here and listen to an hour of philosophical conversation about the non-aggression principle and voluntarism, but there's a wide range of people that would never hear that out. But if I can slip that message into a rap song that sounds like something on the radio, right, everybody will listen to it, and regardless of whether they understand at the time, it'll permeate then into their mind, and eventually people will start to get it, and it'll make it mainstream and it'll make it cool. At the point where we have voluntarism and anarchy being like the cool things to do, and even people that might not necessarily like fully grasp the philosophical ramifications of it, that's the point where we're really going to start to have some success and like break through into the mainstream. And I think it's coming. I think music is an awesome tool to do that. So once I realized that, I really committed myself to, hey, I'm going to make this happen. However long it takes, whatever I have to do, however hard I have to work, I'm going to make it happen.
Cool. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Larkin Rose. He recently said that sometimes some people, like you said, enjoy listening to long philosophical discussions and explanations and theories and all that kind of stuff. And that's good for a certain segment of the population. But other people who don't necessarily want to think so profoundly, right? So these people are more, reactionary, and so if you were to just, drop, the phrase like just say government is illegitimate, just say that and walk away. To some people, that will plant a seed, and they're going to be like, "Wait a minute, what? Why? How?" you know,
Yeah.
and then maybe they hear it again because actually his point was that some people, in order to be convinced of something, all they have to do is hear many people say it, right?
Yeah.
So this is the I believe this is the hundredth monkey effect, right? Where they did a study like 100 monkeys learn something, and then eventually the whole population of the monkeys know it because it's like spread so quickly. So just a small portion of the population, a really passionate portion of the population, have to advance a certain philosophy, and then once that gets started, then the rest, everybody else, will just conform because most people don't really want to think about philosophy on a daily basis. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I see rap. Also, is that you can just drop these these concepts, non-aggression and property rights, and different ways you say it. Government is illegitimate, government is immoral, violent, monopoly, and all that, and it's just something that they can think about, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
that
how you
that
approach
that
it?
sum- that sums it up, man. Yeah, that's exactly how I view it, and yeah, I really think it's gonna get a lot of traction. I think because I feel like this is something that most people want to believe anyway. Like I
Mm.
feel like deep down, most people they know they don't want to be controlled, right? But they have so much of the propaganda weighing down on them, and they've been told all their life this is how it's supposed to be, and so they just kind of conform to that, right? And they have these walls that have been built around them by society that prevents this sort of information to get in. you know but I feel like most people, once it does get in, and once they realize, like, if they can actually, like, you know grasp the logic of why this is wrong, they're just gonna come out, and they're gonna feel like a weight lifted off their shoulders, because it's like, that now I know this is illegitimate. This entire system that we're suffering through, that most of us are miserable in, like, being under this control and being told how we're supposed to live, and driving your car and constantly looking over your shoulder and being nervous every time you see red and blue lights flashing. All this, it actually is bullshit. And now I can say that and feel confident with it, because now, like you said, a lot of people only need a lot of, to hear a bunch of other people say something that's true before they can accept it.
Yeah.
So if enough of us can say it's true, then they'll feel comfortable in accepting the fact that, hey, this is real, this is true, and it's okay for me to believe this now. It's okay for me to even admit it in public,
Mhm.
because I mean, much like the homosexuality movement, or much with like with drug users, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that actually feel in the same way that a lot of anarchists feel, and that they really deep down have anarchistic beliefs, but they're afraid. They're just afraid to step out of that box,
Mhm.
because they just, they might not know how to defend it if anybody, actually digs into them about it, or whatever the case may be. They might not want to stand out. Again, for the same reasons that the homosexual movement has a lot of people in the closet, or that the drug movement has a lot of people in the closet, I feel like anarchy has the same thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, who support government, they don't realize how much anarchy actually dominates their life already. You know, like,
yeah, yeah,
what time you want to wake up, what do you want to eat today, where do you want to go today? That's anarchy. That's making your own choices, right? That's being an individual,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you really want government in your life, then they say those memes. If you really love the government, move to North Korea, move to Cuba,
Exactly.
or move to communist China, because that's the epitome of statism, right? Is communism or totalitarianism. So yeah, people have to realize that anarchy is really what dominates our life. And we most of the time we really don't have involvement with government agents, unless you get stopped by a police, or you go to DMV or whatever, right? But actually, one interesting thing it reminded me of when you said about the police, like, everybody says, but the police keep us safe, right? They law and order, and they keep everybody, safe and in line. And everything. And I'm like, all right, so when you see, the lights flashing in your rearview mirror, do you feel safe?
You feel safe?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Do you feel safe when you see those? No, you feel fear. Be honest. You feel fear when you see those lights. No, ask yourself why you feel fear. Why do you feel fear when you see the lights?
Exactly.
They're not here to serve and protect. For most of us, our parents served and protect us as kids, right? So when you see your parents, how do you feel? Like, oh,
Yeah,
mom, oh,
right.
dad.
Exactly.
You feel good. It makes you feel good because you know those people are really there to serve and protect you. How do you feel when you see a police?
Hmm.
It's not the same. It's not the same thing. You see, I feel like we can communicate these sort of ideas in the most basic terms.
Hmm.
Just like that. That's very basic. Like, how do you feel when you see? Do you actually believe the police are here to serve and protect you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you feel when you see the police?
Yeah.
Do you feel served or protected after your dealings with the police?
Hmm.
And I mean, and it's crazy. It's a crazy idea to even begin with that the police are gonna serve and protect us, right? Because I mean, when you consider the context under which most crimes happen, the police simply can't protect you in those situations.
Yep.
Like the vast majority of crimes that occur, especially violent crimes, occur out of nowhere. The cops are nowhere to be found. They're there to respond to the crime, granted, but they're not. They can't protect you. They just can't. Only we in our community can protect ourselves.
Yeah, and actually, I've been hearing a lot about recent court cases, how saying that the police don't even have a duty to protect the people or their property, right? And most of the time, when police see a violent situation, a theft, or some kind of holdup maybe, or whatever, they don't usually go in and risk their lives. Usually, they stay on the outside and wait until the threat has been resolved. Like, it's quite sad, like the propaganda that you see in the movies, of the heroic police, risking their lives for saving, little old ladies and everything. It's what it is. It's propaganda. Most of the time, police, they have no obligation to protect you. And if you get hurt or you die, they barely any repercussions, right? So there's just no incentive for them to do anything to protect the citizenry.
Right, and incentive, that's the crucial word. I feel like for everything, right? It's like any good video game designer will tell you that you get what you incentivize.
Hmm.
So we have to consider in our society what is being incentivized. I mean, you have things like civil forfeiture, right? Where this is something we deal with on a regular basis and never get busted. Where if the cops bust somebody, say for a drug case, for example, right? They have the right to go in and just take your property. They can take your property, and they basically, it's their property. It becomes their property. They get to make money. They get to auction it, make money off of it. They can seize all they can seize your savings and stuff like that. And they have this huge profit incentive to go out of their way, and even like cases that aren't really a threat to anybody. Like, we're talking about nonviolent drug offenses. They have a huge incentive to even be corrupt with it, and to distort evidence, and to break procedure, because they really want to get that Bentley, and they really want to get that $500,000 that this guy has in his safe. So it's like we're getting these behaviors that we incentivize.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, about politicians, they're incentivized to what? They're incentivized to conform and pander to the mainstream in order to get their votes, because they really want to protect their own position, right? So I mean, in no way are politicians incentivized to actually do what's beneficial for the people. They're just incentivized to serve their corporate masters, and to serve the same needs that pay their that donate to them, and that give them their $1 million donations, and that whole, it's incentives. Whatever you incentivize, that is the behavior you're going to get.
I firmly believe that you know how, I don't know if you read about Plato's The Republic. He talks about philosopher kings. How kings should be philosophers and philosophers should be kings. But I really even think that even if kings or presidents are philosophers, they're still going to do harm, because how can one person or even a small group of people make decisions that's going to benefit millions of people, right? That's completely impossible. Millions of unique, diverse individuals, with different wants, needs, and desires. How can you possibly cater to all of them? You can't. And you're
Yeah,
always going to be hurting people, regardless if your intentions are good or bad, right? So, and again,
right.
good, the was it the road to hell paved with good intentions, right? So
Yeah,
it always
yeah.
is. So
Yeah, man.
you mentioned never get busted. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, never get busted is basically, again, it began as this initiative started by Barry Cooper, who was a semi-famous, like, narcotic officer in Texas. He was one of the top-rated officers. He was like, statewide renowned for his abilities, and being on that end of the drug war, and busting people, and leading raids, and that whole nine. He basically realized that everything he was doing was wrong. He realized that he was ruining families and ruining lives over marijuana and other harmless drug offenses. And so basically, he wanted to reconcile for everything that he had done by teaching people how to not get busted, how to not be a victim of the same inhumanities that he suffered upon people. And so he made the first two DVDs, Never Get Busted Volume 1 and Never Get Busted Volume 2, which showed people how to not get busted when cultivating and transporting drugs. And, they've sold millions of copies worldwide.
Wow.
And a lot of people have taken a lot of inspiration, and have protected themselves based on the information provided in those DVDs. And it really grew and blossomed into more of a humanitarian effort, where we use Barry's expertise as an expert witness, and a lot of his knowledge from being a former narcotic officer, to sort of like shatter a lot of the bullshit that people are suffering through in these court cases. Whether it be an abuse of power, or like an officer breaking procedure and not doing things how they're supposed to be done. There's a whole range of things that he's able to cut through based on his status as a top-ranking former narcotics officer. And yeah, we've been able to free hundreds of people from either court cases and probation, or even from prison. From federal prison, even. We had a guy, Mr. Wilson, who was actually he was in prison for 30 years. He was
Gosh.
sentenced to, for marijuana seeds. All he had was marijuana seeds, and he was sentenced to 30 years. The seeds, we're talking about the seeds of a plant.
He could have just told him he's going to
How
use them. He's
insane!
going to use them for cooking, right? Like cumin seeds, coriander seeds, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He's going
right.
to use it for.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
You're just gonna put them in a grinder and use
Yeah,
them for seasoning.
for a smoothie,
But yeah, man, yeah, smoothie. Yeah, man, it's crazy. But yeah, we were able to get him out. He had already suffered 15 years
Wow.
in federal prison, but we were able to get him out 15 years early, based on our reporting and Barry's expertise.
Wow.
So yeah, never get busted is a cause that I'm happy to be aligned with, and yeah, that I feel like a lot of people can benefit from, especially in this day and age when America has how many more times of prisoners than the nearest other country. You know, we have by far the most prisoners, uh,
Hmm.
like multiples more than the again the second place country. I don't even know who's second place at the moment, but it's insane, man. It's
Yeah, yeah. I
insane.
think
It's
I
dark
think I
ages.
think it's higher than like we have the highest percentage of our population and per capita. You know, our population even more than China, right? Which has around
Yeah,
over a
yeah,
billion people, right?
yeah.
Which is really amazing. When I
Yeah.
mean, China just came out of communism too, so we're even more fascistic than China, which is pretty amazing. You know, people are like, you know, America's freedom. You
Freedom, freedom,
know.
America.
I'm like, what kind? What freedom? You know, the terrorists hate us for our freedoms. I'm like, what? What freedom? Where's the freedom? You know?
That, that one always cracked me up because okay, even insofar as we assume that that's true, right?
Yeah.
How do we respond to that? If 9/11 happened because the terrorists hate us because we're free, and then we immediately turn around and we issue the Patriot Act, we're stripping our freedoms away. Like, have they not won?
Hmm.
The terrorists hate us for our freedom, so we should be less free.
Yeah. Yeah.
America logic.
Yeah. And like
America
I
logic.
think how many? 3,000 people died, right? 9/11, and then since since we started the wars in the Middle East, I think about 1 million people have died, more or less. And so it's like it seems to me it's like somebody like you kill, let's say, I don't know, one person, and then they kill you, your family, your extended family, your entire block, maybe. That's like our
Yeah.
idea of retaliation is like just exterminate the entire Middle East. That should solve the problem. Let's just
It's
level it to the
crazy.
ground.
That's all we have to do. Oh, they're killing people, so we should go in and just kill all of them. And collateral damage and all. Like, doesn't matter who's nearby. Let's just kill all of them
Oh yeah.
because they're killing people.
Yeah, might equals right. That's the logical fallacy of the force, right? Appeal to the force or appeal to the stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. That's one of the bases I really try to reach people, and it's disheartening sometimes, like how often it doesn't really resonate with people. But the fact that we have this moral inconsistency from the individual to the collective,
Hmm.
like it's completely okay for the state to send individuals to go over and murder somebody else for territory or in retaliation or whatever. But we understand within our country that if you murder someone else out of retaliation, then it's still wrong, right? You still go to jail. They don't care. The reasons that the state goes to war are the same reasons that gangs go to war.
Hmm.
It's the exact same reason. But if a gang does it, then we lock them up in prison. And if the state does it, then we cheer them on and we give them badges and we express our nationalism about how proud we are of our veterans. And it's completely it's schizophrenic. We live in a schizophrenic era,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. You can kill as many people that you never heard of. Might have been friends with, and you get the Medal of Honor, right? You get the Medal of Valor. You get the Purple Heart or whatever crap they give
Golden
for
Star.
for spilling innocent blood. It's and then like talking about the Chris Kyle movie. I don't know if you saw that, the American Sniper. Did you see that movie? I
I haven't.
I didn't. Yeah, me neither. But I refuse to see it. But I've learned so much just from other people talking about it. I can kind of get an idea of it already. And it's like he's like considered to be a hero because he killed like 160 people over there, right? But and then I was watching a video. Adam Kokesh was interviewing some people about the movie, and they were saying, he's an American hero. We should support the troops. And they're like, he was killing terrorists. These are evil people. And then Adam Kokesh was basically saying like, if a foreign invader came to this country and occupied our land, and with rolling tanks through the streets, would you not feel compelled to resist or try to get them out or kill them? Like, and and is that justified? Of course it's justified. They're just defending their land against foreign invaders,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what we call, insurgents, right? Or terrorists. It's just people defending their land, and then you kill one person, and of course, maybe you creating 10 more people who are really angry and hate the U.S. and join some kind of
Right.
fundamentalist movement and want to cause more violence. So it doesn't solve anything.
Exactly. People that may have not even heard of any of these movements, ISIS and Al Qaeda and all these other boogeymen, people that might not have even heard of those movements before. Now you're bombing their neighborhoods and you're killing their family members. How do you think that's going to make them feel about the U.S.? How do you think that's going to make them feel about these boogeymen that they didn't know, didn't have anything to do with? But I mean, now it's about protecting your family. Now it's about protecting your home when it comes down to defending yourself and your neighborhoods and your people are being bombed. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. It's
Yeah,
insane,
and
man.
that's what they call defending the country, right? Defending our freedom is going over an ocean and killing people that you never met, right? That's called defending freedom,
Yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
not offensive. That's defensive, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's the what do you call it? The Newspeak in 1984 George Orwell, right? So the Department of Defense is really the Department of Offense, right? Public education is
Yeah,
really the Department of Education is really the Department of Indoctrination, right?
yeah,
Things like
yeah,
that.
man.
Counter. The currency creation or quantitative easing is really just counterfeiting, right?
Yeah, basically. Basically, that's all it really is. I mean, they have a monopoly on counterfeiting. That's all. That's all the Federal Reserve is, an organization with a monopoly on counterfeiting.
Yeah. So let me ask you: when you talk to people about anarchy and voluntarism, how do you like get started with the conversation? How do you what's usually your lines to get people to start thinking, like when you meet people on the street or something?
A lot of times it depends on who I'm talking to and how I have to approach that person. Whether they're a really logical person or whether they're a really emotional person or what biases I already know they have. Maybe they're in a specific field when I can show them how the state is completely thwarting the innovation in their field. There's a lot of different scenarios, but one of my favorite things to approach people with is, okay, if you believe in government, right? Do you believe that the elected officials are your moral, intellectual, or spiritual superiors? Do you believe that these people are your moral, intellectual, or spiritual superiors, right? And if the answer is no, then why do they have any right to tell you how to live your life? Because most people won't admit that. Oh yeah, I think these people are way smarter than I am. They're more moral people than I am, and they're people that are more spiritually adept. That's why I listen to them. Most people will
Mm-hmm.
never say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, if in insofar as you accept that you don't believe that these people are morally, spiritually, or intellectually superior to you, then there's no reason why they should tell you how to live your life, right?
And,
'Cause
and then they say, but we're government. We elected them, right? They're representing us, right? So we give them the power. They're our servants. So what would you say that?
oh yeah, the people that are our servants, right? I mean, we elect them, quote unquote. We quote unquote elect the people that have the most financial backing, and then once they're elected, they don't have any obligation to listen to what we have to say.
Nope.
Right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, if it was actually about what the people believe and whether the people want marijuana legalization, right? We would just listen to the people.
Hmm.
We would just listen to the people. How many scenarios have there been where the majority of the people want marijuana legalization, for example, and yet their elected officials don't want to vote for that? So, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. You get what the elected officials want,
Yeah.
not what the people want.
I was just thinking about this, that some people tell me you should support marijuana legalization because that's baby steps towards anarchy, right? We can't, if we just want anarchy outright, you're not going to be satisfied. So we have to make baby steps. So the legalization of cannabis is a baby step. But to me, that seems like slaves just slaves in the South, chain slavery, wanting just a slightly longer chain, or
Just give us a recess, master. Just give us recess.
just like or just whip me a little bit less.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically what it is.
Yeah, it
So
really is. Like maybe just punch us and don't hit us with the whip. Maybe we'll take that. That's a big win. That's freedom right there,
that's
you
pretty.
know? We only get punched.
Yeah, so of course we support these things, but it's just a wasted effort to just petition your politician, or write letters, or make banners, support legalization of cannabis. Like, of course, that's one small aspect of freedom, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, and that's why I don't feel like a lot of people, a lot of libertarians, they have this whole ideology where we're supposed to we're supposed to get in government. We want to get libertarians in government so we can gradually start to repeal laws, and we can have the libertarian influence on government, and we can get enough people to vote, and we'll vote some new provisions in, or we'll repeal some old law. No. We can't work within their system like that. It's never gonna work. It's gonna Even if it was gonna work, it would take way too long. Like, yeah, humanity could destroy themselves before we can ever get enough libertarians into office to impact things on a national level. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. What I think is going to happen is there's going to be a gradual disintegration of government as technology begins to overpower everything that government represents, right? So one of my favorite metaphors to use, just because it's easy to see and it's already happened and most people resonate with it, is you think about all the laws against illegally downloading music, right?
Yeah.
Like Napster came out and the RIAA and all these government institutions were like, oh no, you can't download music. This is illegal. You're violating copyrights. And they wanted to take all these people to court for downloading music and lock people up and fine people. And yeah, they really tried to use the power of the state to suppress this technology and to suppress this new freedom that this technology was enabling. And we all know how that turned out. I mean, Napster was easy to shut down because it was a centralized service, right?
Yeah.
But then you had BitTorrent pop up, which is this decentralized technology that's simply ungovernmentable. It's simply uncensorable. You can't stop it, right? And so now your grandma probably torrents, right? Everybody uses torrents. Everybody downloads music illegally. It's become so pervasive, and now it's accepted that it just can't be stopped. That the state just has to, they're not really issuing court cases on anybody anymore because you just can't stop it. And I think the same thing is going to happen across every aspect of our lives, right? I mean, you have Bitcoin coming across now, where it's dramatically revolutionizing, decentralizing, and democratizing finance. And they can try to suppress it, they can try to regulate it, and they can try to exert the power of the state over Bitcoin. But it's this decentralized technology that you can't hold down, and that's gonna completely overshadow one of the biggest pressures on humanity as a whole, and that's centralized banking. So Bitcoin is going to, step over that. Then you're going to have 3D printers, which come along and democratize and decentralize the means of production as far as capitalism goes. And then you're going to have, the sustainable energy is just the decentralization of energy grids. And you're going to have people that start to use aquaponic systems in their own house to grow their own food. That's the decentralization of our food production. And you're going to have the decentralization of everything and the proliferation of these technologies that can't be controlled, that are just going to make the state obsolete. It's not going to be a fight against the state. It's going to be technology making the state obsolete. And it's just going to gradually fade away. and it probably slipped back into its own niches, right? Like, there's this that whole thing, as far as like the Christianity counter argument against atheism, right? Like, if evolution is true, why do we still have monkeys? Like if we evolved from monkeys, why do monkeys still exist?
Yeah.
Well, because monkeys still have their own evolutionary niche.
Hmm.
There's still a niche where monkeys fit in and where they make the most sense in that environment. And I think government will slip back into that. Even though we're going to evolve beyond government and our society is going to be based on decentralized technologies and voluntarism, the government still might exist in these little pockets. And it's just going to be this old relic that only makes sense in these handful of areas and these handful of situations. And I think that's the fate of it, and that's what's going to come to be within the next 50 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think technology will, emancipate humanity, and I can just see the Luddites or the
Yeah.
anti-technology folk, saying how technology, like let's say 3D printers, how can you print things that we make, that's destroying jobs. You're destroying my livelihood, But they don't
Yeah.
realize how much of an advancement, how technology has really allowed humanity to flourish, to over 7 billion people, whereas before, we were just struggling at, let's say, barely a billion or even less. And an easy way I talk to these people who are anti-technology, and I'm like, so if we take your idea that technology is evil to the conclusion, right, then we should banish all trains. We should take everything on our backs, right? Because full employment, that's the goal, is full employment,
Right.
right? So,
Right.
so
Right.
carry everything on your back. Stop using excavators. Just use teaspoons to dig up the earth, right?
Right.
Everybody will be employed, right?
Exactly. Where
The
do you cut
economy.
it off? Well, where do you cut it off?
Yeah.
People don't realize the point that they decide to cut it off and say everything, all new technology is bad because it's ruining jobs and this and this. Everything that came before is good. Like the cutoff point that you decide to use is completely arbitrary. Like most people feel like everything that came out before their time is good, but everything new that came
Yeah.
out after their time is bad. It's ludicrous. They don't realize people were saying the same thing about refrigerators and the milkman, right? Like, oh, if you can just keep your milk cold, what about the milkman? We're not gonna. If we just send emails, what about the mail? What about the postman?
Oh yeah.
Oh, even if we value full employment over technological progress, right? Okay, yeah, the mailman might have is starting to fade away a little bit, right? We don't need mail as much, but at the same time, there are a lot of email startups coming up, and like now, there's more web hosting companies that have to manage email, and it's created this entire new ecosystem of things for people to do. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's if we even value the total employment over human progress thing. I think human progress is the most important thing, and that we need to lift humanity as high as we can, as fast as we can. We need to uplift the billions of people that are starving and don't have access to resources. All that needs to be solved before we worry about, like, oh, well, what are we going to do with our time if we have access to all the resources we need and we have all this technological progress that makes human effort obsolete?
Yeah.
You know?
I know. It's completely illogical, and then the hypocrisy of these people, talking, talking bad about technology while they're typing on their laptops and talking through Skype, right? or the communists who want to abolish private property, but everything that they bought is bought through capitalism, right? Through capitalism.
Right, right. I really want to like reach through the internet and just lightly bitch slap everybody I see on YouTube making videos that are talking down on technology. Like, you're making a YouTube video and you're spreading it through your Twitter and your Facebook about how technology is evil and is disconnecting humanity.
Yeah, I know. The hypocrisy is
Really,
is painful sometimes.
really, and chew on the irony.
So why don't you let people know where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, for my music and my writings and everything that has to do with L-Dixon, you can find it at l-dixon.com. For everything, never get busted. And if you, especially if you have any loved ones or you know anyone that's, suffering through any sort of drug case or is in prison unrightfully for, a nonviolent drug offense, please contact us at nevergetbusted.com. And if you need any web design, you can contact us at autonomicecreative.com. So that's my plug. And thank you, Danilo, and thank you, the Voluntary Virtues Network, for bringing me on. I appreciate everything. I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to contacting and working with you guys in the future.
Yeah, no problem. Actually, your term of what do you say, nonviolent drug offense to me is kind of redundant. Like, what is a violent drug offense? Like, is there such a thing as a violent drug offense? Like
Yeah, 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 yeah. Great question.
if somebody is using drugs, it's like that's their choice, right? How can that be violent? It doesn't really make sense to me, but
Yeah, I don't know. Unless you're like smoking crack and slapping someone at
and
the
killing.
same time, or
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know if that happens, but maybe I can see that.
But then again,
Yeah.
then again, in that case, you would put the crack in jail, and the person would be right. If it's really the war on drugs, you put the crack and the marijuana in jail, and the person goes free, right? Because it's the war on drugs.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Touche, man. Touche.
All right, cool.
Yeah, man.
Why don't you leave the listeners with any last message you want to give them before we sign off?
I don't really have any last message. I feel like we've tapped it all I'm gonna say is keep the peace rolling, live free, be free.
Awesome, simple and sweet. Very
All right.
nice. All right, very good. Thank you very much for the conversation, L-Dixon. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care.